Chapter 12 of Character Building. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Luke Sartor. Character Building by Booker T. Washington. Chapter 12. What will pay? I wish to talk with you for a few minutes upon a subject that is much discussed, especially by young people. What things pay in life? There is no question, perhaps, which is asked oftener by a person entering upon a career than this. What will pay? Will this course of action, or that business? What will pay? Let us see if we can answer that question. A question which every student in this school should ask himself or herself. What will profit me most? What will make my life most useful? What will bring about the greatest degree of happiness? What will pay best? Not long ago, a certain minister secured the testimony of 40 men who had been successful in business. Persons who, beyond question, had been pronounced to be businessmen of authority. The question which this minister put to these businessmen was, whether under any circumstances it paid to be dishonest in business, whether they had found, in all their business career, that under any circumstances it paid to cheat, swindle, or take advantage of their fellow men, or in any way to deceive those with whom they came in contact. Every one of the 40 answered, without hesitation, that nothing short of downright honesty and fair dealings ever paid in any business. They said that no one could succeed permanently in business that was not honest in dealing with his fellow men, to say nothing of the future life, or of doing right for right's sake. It does not pay an individual to do anything except what his conscience will approve of every day and every hour and minute in the day. I want you to put that question to yourselves tonight. Ask yourselves, what course of action will pay? You may be tempted to go astray in the matter of money. Think when you are tempted to do that. What will pay? Persons who are likely to go astray in the matter of money, furthermore, are likely to do so in the matter of dress, tampering with each other's property, and the matter of acting dishonestly with each other's books. Such persons will be dishonest in the matter of labour too. It pays an individual to be honest with another person's money. It never pays to be dishonest in taking another person's clothes or books. None of these things ever pays, and when you have occasion to yield or not to yield to such a temptation, you should ask yourself the question, will it pay me to do this? Put that question constantly to yourself. Whenever you promise, moreover, to do a piece of work for a man, there is a contract binding you to do an honest day's labour, and the man to pay you for an honest day's labour. If you fail to give such service, if you break that contract, you will find that such a course of action never pays. It will never pay you to deal dishonestly with an individual, or to permit dishonest dealing. If you fail to give a full honest day's work, if you know that you have done only 3/4 of a day's work, or 4/5, it may seem to you at the time that it is paid, but in the long run you lose by it. I regret to say that we sometimes have occasion to meet students here who are inclined to be dishonest. Such students come to Mr. Palmer or to me and say they wish to go home. When they are asked why they wish to go home, some of them say they wish to go because they are sick. Then, when they have been talked with a few minutes, they may say that they do not like the food here, or perhaps that some disappointment has befallen their parents. In some cases I have students give me half a dozen excuses in little more than the same number of minutes. The proper thing for students to do, when they wish to go home, is to state the exact reason and then stick to it. The student who does this is the kind that will succeed in the world. The students who are downright dishonest in what they say will find out that they are not strong in anything, that they are not what they ought to be. The time will come when that sort of thing will carry them down instead of up. In a certain year, I think it was 1857, there was a great financial panic in the United States, especially in the city of New York. A great many of the principal banks in the country failed, and others were in daily danger of failure. I remember a story that was told of one of the bank presidents of that time, William Taylor, I believe. All the bank presidents in the city of New York were having meetings every night to find out how well they were succeeding in keeping their institutions solvent. At one of these meetings, after a critical day in the most trying period of the panic, when some men reported that they had lost money during that day, and others that so much money had been withdrawn from their banks during the day that if there were another like it, they did not see how they could stand the strain, William Taylor reported that money had been added to the deposits of his bank that day, instead of being withdrawn. What was behind all this? William Taylor had learned in early life that it did not pay to be dishonest, but that it paid to be honest with all his depositors and with all persons who did business with his bank. When other people were failing in all parts of the country, the evidence of this man's character, his regard for truth and honest dealing, caused money to come into his bank when it was being withdrawn from others. Character is a power. If you want to be powerful in the world, if you want to be strong, influential, and useful, you can be so in no better way than by having strong character. But you cannot have a strong character if you yield to the temptations about which I have been speaking. Someone asked some time ago what it was that gave such a power to the sermons of the late Dr. John Hall. In the usual sense, he was not a powerful speaker, but everything he said carried conviction with it. The explanation was that the character of the man was behind the sermon. You may go out and make great speeches. You may write books or addresses, which are great literature. But unless you have character behind what you say and write, it will amount to nothing. It will all go to the winds. I leave this question with you then. When you are tempted to do what your conscience tells you is not right, ask yourself, will it pay me to do this thing which I know is not right? Go to the penitentiary. Ask the people there who have failed, who have made mistakes, why they are there. And in every case, they will tell you that they are there because they yielded to temptation, because they did not ask themselves the question, will it pay? Go ask those people who have no care for life, who have thrown away their virtue, as it were. Ask them why they are without character. And the answer will be, in so many words, that they sought but temporary success. In order to find some short road to success, in order to have momentary happiness, they yielded to temptation. We want to feel that in every student who goes out from here, There is a character which can be depended upon in the night as well as in the day. That is the kind of young men and young women we wish to send out from here. Whenever you are tempted to yield a hair's breadth in the direction which I have indicated, ask yourself the question over and over again: will it pay me in this world? Will it pay me in the world to come? End of Chapter 12. What will pay? Recording by Luke Sartor, Griffith, New South Wales. Chapter 13 of Character Building. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Luke Sartor. Character Building by Booker T. Washington. Chapter 13. Education that Educates. This talk was given soon after the visit of President McKinley to Tuskegee Institute in the fall of 1898. Perhaps I am safe in saying that during the last 10 days you have not given much systematic effort to book study in the usual sense. When interruptions come, such as we have just had, taking you away from your regular routine work and study, and the preparation of routine lessons is interrupted, the first thought to some may be that this time is lost, in so far as it relates to education in the ordinary sense, that it is so much time taken away from that part of one's life that should be devoted to acquiring education. I suppose that during the last few days the questions have come to many of you. What are we gaining? What are we getting from the irregularity that has characterized the school grounds within the last week, that will in any degree compensate for the amount of book study that we have lost? To my mind, I do not believe that you have lost anything by the interruption. On the other hand, I am convinced that you have got the best kind of education. I do not mean to say that we can depend upon it for all time to come, for systematic training of the mind. But so far as real education, so far as development of the mind and heart and body are concerned, I do not believe that a single student has lost anything by the irregularity of the last week or more. You have gained in this respect, in preparing for the reception and entertainment of the President of the United States and his Cabinet, and the distinguished persons who accompanied the party. You have had to do an amount of original thinking which you, perhaps, have never had to do before in your lives. You have been compelled to think. You have been compelled to put more than your bodily strength into what you have been doing. You could not have made the magnificent exhibition of our work which you have made if you had not been compelled to do original thinking and execution. Most of you never saw such an exhibition before. I never did. Those of you who had to construct floats that would illustrate our agricultural work and our mechanical and academic work had to put a certain amount of original thought into the planning of these floats in order to make them show the work to the best advantage. And 2/3 of you, yes, practically all of you, had never seen anything of the kind before. For this reason, it was a matter that had to be thought out by you and planned out by you, and then put into visible shape. Now compare that kind of education with the mere committing to memory of certain rules, or something which someone else thought out and executed 1,000 years ago perhaps. And that is what a large part of our education really is. Education in the usual sense of the word is the mere committing to memory of something which has been known before us. Now during the last 10 days we have had to solve problems of our own, not problems and puzzles that someone else originated for us. I do not believe that there is a person connected with the institution who is not stronger in mind, who is not more self-confident and self-reliant, so far as the qualities relate to what he is able to do with his mind or his hands, than he was 10 or 12 days ago. There is the benefit that came to all of us. It put us to thinking and planning. It brought us into contact with things that are out of the ordinary, and there is no education that surpasses this. I see more and more every year that the world is to be brought to the study of men and of things, rather than to the study of mere books. You will find more and more as the years go by that people will gradually lay aside books and study the nature of man in a way they have never done as yet. I tell you then that in this interruption of the regular school work, you have not lost anything. You have gained. You have had your minds awakened, your faculties strengthened, and your hands guided. I do not wish to speak of this matter egotistically, but it is true that I have heard a great many persons from elsewhere mention the pleasure which they have received in meeting Tuskegee students, because when they come in contact with a student who has been here, they are impressed with the fact that he or she does not seem to be dead or sleepy. They say that when they meet a Tuskegee boy or girl, they find a person who has had contact with real life. The education that you have been getting during the last few days, you will find, as the years go by, has been of a kind that will serve you in good stead all through your lives. Just in proportion as we learn to execute something, to put our education into tangible form, as we have been doing during the last few days, in just the same proportion will we find ourselves of value as individuals and as a race. Those people who came here to visit us knew perfectly well that we could commit to memory certain lines of poetry. They knew we were able to solve certain problems in algebra and geometry. They understood that we could learn certain rules in chemistry and agriculture. But what interested them most was to see us put into visible form the results of our education. Just in proportion as an individual is able to do that, he is of value to the world. That is the object of the work which we are trying to do here. We are trying to turn out men and women who are able to do something that the world wants done, that the world needs to have done. Just in proportion as you can comply with that demand, you will find that there is a place for you. There is going to be standing room. By the training we are giving you here, we are preparing you for a place in the world. We are going to train you so that when you get to that place, if you fail in it, the failure will not be our fault. It is a great satisfaction to have connected with a race, men and women who are able to do something. Not merely to talk about doing it, not merely to theorize about doing it, but actually to do something that makes the world better to live in, something that enhances the comforts and conveniences of life. I had a good example of this last week. I wanted something done in my office which required a practical knowledge of electricity. It was a great satisfaction when I called upon one of the teachers to have him do the work in a careful, praiseworthy manner. It is very well to talk or lecture about electricity, but it is better to be able to do something of value with one's knowledge of electricity. And so, as you go on, increasing your ability to do things of value, you will find that the problem which often nowadays looks more and more difficult of solution will gradually become easier. One of the cabinet members who were here a few days ago said, after witnessing the exhibition which you made here, that the islands which this country had taken into its possession during the recent war are soon going to require the service of every man and woman we can turn out from this institution. You will find it true, not only in this country, but in other countries, that the demand will be more and more for people who can do something. Just in proportion as we can, as a race, get the reputation which I spoke to you about a few days ago, you will find there will be places for us. Regardless of colour or condition, the world is going to give the places of trust and remuneration to the men and women who can do a certain thing as well as anybody else or better. This is the whole problem. Shall we prepare ourselves to do something as well as anybody else or better? Just in proportion as we do this, you will find that nothing under the sun will keep us back. End of chapter 13. Education that educates. Recording by Luke Sartor, Griffith, New South Wales.